Welcome to the Social Podcast, where no discussion or debate is off limits.
That is full-blown Friday vibes. Oh, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for that warm welcome. We love those screams that will probably continue when I tell you that our first story is about 58-year-old Tim McGraw. Oh my gosh.
Am I?
Tim, well, that is a fine drink of water right there. It turns out, though, that Tim has moved on from tailgates and bikinis, at least in his lyrics. The country star said on TL's Roadhouse podcast that he's now too old to sing about stereotypical country tropes. So is there an age cap when it comes to music, lyrics, what you sing about?
I love right?
Really?
Smart audience.
Wow.
Smart audience.
This is very funny. Okay, I see what you're saying. Like a musician, sure, they can write lyrics about whatever they want, but don't you kind of feel like there's this unwritten contract between them and us, and that we grow with them, like we'll keep showing up for them as they evolve? Like I think of something like Miley Cyrus and Hannah Montana. You know, like if Miley Cyrus at 70 was still sort of doing that style of music, it would feel inauthentic. It would feel like she was playing a character.
Although
right?
I would love to
Which
see
she
her.
was.
Although she was. I would have loved to see her. I would love to see her at 70 naked on a wrecking ball.
It's possible you might be able to see that. But like, I don't want to keep like my favorite singers. Like, there was a time maybe when I liked hearing lyrics about keggers and boobs, but I'm almost grown out of it. So like, I want my musicians to grow out of that as well.
Yeah.
I think what's bothering me is the too old. Like, I understand if Tim is like, I'm a man of a particular age, my kids are grown, so I did those things 30 years ago and I'm not connected to it. But saying you're too old to me is the problem, because we have a lot of examples of people who are doing things that don't necessarily correlate to their age. People starting businesses,
Sure.
athletes still doing their thing, people wearing certain types of clothes. Cher, I'm looking at you. And even I'm gonna call myself out. I sat on this show and said, I like to party, but I stopped going to clubs because I'm like, I don't want to be the oldest person in the club. And
So
then,
don't you think that's what Tim's saying?
No, but then I met this woman by the name of Andrea. She's 75 years young, and she's at all the hot parties, and she dances from the beginning of the party to the end. This is Andrea. Yes, this is Andrea. She's turning 76 this August. She is dancing with rapper Travis Scott at Coachella. So when I see that, there's no such thing as too old.
But what about music and lyrics?
You may be past the time when you don't want to sing about something, but saying you're not doing it because you're too old. Say a person is divorced and they want to go back to bikinis and keggers. Should we tell them they're not allowed to? You could just be in a different phase of your life.
70, and you wouldn't feel a little bit funny? Maybe I'm being ageist.
Andrea Bole changed my whole attitude about it. Sorry. Never too old, baby.
I agree.
Never too
I
old.
think it is a bit different. Like, I think in this case also, he rightly pointed out that some things are country tropes that he used to sing about, and he didn't identify with. There's also a song, which I will not say the title of, that I think he's shelved because it had a lot of cultural, stereotypical problems in it. So I think, I love the fact that he's being self-aware of that identity and those tropes, and he doesn't want to play into that anymore because there can be problems with that. Derek Forgy, our audience coordinator, also pointed out Mr. One Sir Paul McCartney, who is 82 years old. He apparently doesn't sing anymore a song that you'll recognize by its first lyric, which is, she was just 17. Yeah. And you know what I mean? Like, there's something that doesn't, you know what I mean? Yeah. You don't want to see the 82-year-old. I mean, he's aware of that too. There's something a bit funky about that.
Yeah. Listen, I agree. Like, I don't think there should be any limits on too old for anything, because I am always the oldest one at the club, and I don't care. And I do see Andrea there.
Right?
I do see her from time to time there. You know what's interesting is that, I think to your point, Jess, when we fall in love with an artist and the most famous singer-songwriters, we usually connect with them because there's something very familiar. The reason why Taylor Swift is one of the biggest singer-songwriters on the planet is because she writes about stuff that a lot of us can relate to. And even if you're not 17, 20, 30 anymore, she still writes in a way that takes you back to that first love. And then she taps into nostalgia so much. But I think even for Taylor, she's growing and we are growing as she grows. I think, listen, when the time comes, not if, when she gets married and has babies, okay, I think you're going to see the music shift, and she's not going to be singing about being a little teenager anymore. But the fan base, we grow with them. And I love Tim McGraw because he's now writing music that it feels right for him, not because he's 58, but because he's wiser. One of his biggest hits last year was called People Like Us. And there's a big movement in America about kind of getting back to like the working class and where is the working class? And at the same time, we're more similar than we are different. He sees such a divide in America. He is evolving with the times, which is what I think makes a good artist timeless. And he looks really good doing it. So we're not mad at that, right?
Okay, we're gonna move on to this. Oklahoma City Sideline reporter Nick Gallo has become famous for staying focused while putting up with the team's many pranks. You can see them dressing him up there. So according to other reporters though, while it's clear that the players adore Gallo and love that they can't get him to break, the question we're having is this disrespectful on any level?
Do you guys think it's disrespectful? Listen, I think this is brilliant. Listen, if you're a reporter and you're on a beat, like you cover a specific topic, it could be politics or it could be sports, so that means you're gonna be interviewing the same people over and over again. Getting that kind of like relationship and that trust is going to help you in so many ways. If there's an exclusive story, it also makes it more fun. You guys just enjoyed watching that. You don't even know who that guy is, but you enjoyed watching it. So on both ends, it's great for people. And also, I watch a lot of these sports shows, and I've noticed over the last, say, 10 years, that there are fewer and fewer sports journalists like Nick being hired and more ex-professional athletes taking those jobs. So if I'm him and I'm thinking, I'm seeing my job being squeezed out and these guys are coming in and they have a shorthand with these professional athletes, what do I do to stand out? Because I'm not Stephen A. Smith. I can't be screaming at people through the TV for hours. Well, this is the way you stand out. This is the way you make yourself memorable. This is why you make yourself really great with the people you interview and the audience, because that's who you're serving. We are here to serve you guys. If you're not enjoying it, why are we doing it? And I think that he's hitting the nail on the head. So continue to do what you're doing, Nick. I think it's a smart thing to do.
I totally agree. I think I especially love how organic it feels and how affectionate it is on both sides. But it got me thinking about something because it does feel like lightning in a bottle, what he's created. And what does he do after that? It made me think about the relationships between someone like Jimmy Kimmel and Guillermo, like his sidekick, or Conan O'Brien and Andy Richter. Like Andy Richter and Guillermo, you know, they're not unsuccessful, but I think when I certainly think of them, I think of them tied to those other people. So it's almost like they cornered themselves. And so I worry about Gallo, like where will he go from here? Like this role could be the win of a lifetime, but it could also be a massive hurdle for him to get over.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I got somebody on the phone who I thought could give us a little bit of insight. We all know Kayla Gray, who is our great friend, and she's a great reporter at TSN, and she travels with the Toronto Raptors, and she's got an amazing relationship with the players and has had that for many years. And I called her and I said, talk to me about Nick Gallo, what do you think? And she said, you know, it's a double-edged sword. Overall, she thinks it's a benefit to have this rapport, and that's great when the team is winning. And OKC just came off of one of the hottest seasons they've had in a very long time. It's easy to be that reporter when the team is winning. When you have to ask hard questions, like you've lost 5 games in a row, how do you become Nick Gallo, like I'm the clown, to what the heck is happening on the court, guys? And they don't want to talk to you. So she said there's a dance that has to be done that is very delicate, but this is relationship building is ultimately what it is. And it's you scratch my back, I scratch yours. So he might not want to talk about something. A player who's had a terrible game might not want to talk about something, but you will maybe get something from him next time. He might look at you and be like, not today. But the next time, I'm going to give you an exclusive. So there's a bit of an exchange that happens.
It works.
And she said that the guys also, when she sees you get the respect of one player, all the other players take notice and go, okay, she's to be respected. And so there is that shorthand. Is that all we've got time for right now?
So a Canada Post strike continues to loom over us. Negotiations seem to have stalled, and workers are refusing overtime. According to their annual report, the last time Canada Post made money was back in 2017. So what do they need to do to adapt to changes in our society? Who wants to take this one on?
Anybody here work for Canada Post? I'm just curious. Okay, I mean, listen, nobody wants to see anybody lose jobs, but you also don't want to see what we saw happen with the Hudson's Bay, which is the entire company shuts down. So they got to figure out something. And you know, there is such a massive change in how we shop, in how we get mail delivery, and who's getting the mail delivery. So there has to be something drastic, and I don't know how you do that when you're at the same time trying to protect a lot of jobs. But I do say, you know, there's things that are not realistic. I was reading, because, you know, as one does, you read the collective agreement of the unions with Canada Post, and there was a clause in there that just blew me away, which is basically, you are basically guaranteed a job for life. That doesn't sound realistic in 2025.
No.
And, you know, I would wish that for all of us. It's just not realistic. Not only have they not made money since 2017, they have lost $3 billion since then.
Yep.
They just got $1 billion loan from the federal government this past January, and their own people have said, we're going to need $1 billion a year just to stay afloat. Now, guess whose money that is? That's our money.
And how do we feel about that?
You know, that's where it gets really, really hard.
Vicky.
What if? Okay, you bring out some wonderful stats. It's very, very interesting. But I wonder if it's incumbent upon us to shift the way we think about Canada Post. You referred to it as a business, but I think of it more as this vital public service. The idea like a library, the idea like a fire department, the idea of like road maintenance. You know, we don't expect our roads to make money, but we all use them. And that's exactly why Canada Post is a crown corporation, meaning they're not supposed to be thinking about shareholders and how much money they make. They're not actually even thinking about profit. Do you know what I mean?
They were covering themselves too. They wasn't necessarily, the taxpayer wasn't on the hook for this for a long period of time. They were somewhat profitable for years, but then again in 2017 was the last time they made a profit, and since then they've lost $3 billion, as you mentioned. And I think the thing is that what is left that Canada Post is doing? Well, first of all, it's servicing like rural areas, right? Where, thank
Can't forget
you.
about them.
I think it's necessary. People with disabilities, people who are elderly, people who still love to send a card every once in a while. And Canada Post doesn't allow anybody else to send those types of things. With packages, they can't compete. Obviously, our interest in getting packages has skyrocketed in the last decade or so. And unfortunately, Canada Post doesn't work on the weekends as part of the protected union thing. So what I think is that about all the systems that are government-based still rely on Canada Post. Things like our Canada Revenue Agency thing.
Election notices.
Things that are like of sensitive nature, like WSIB I know uses this. I'm sure in penitentiaries they use mail. You're not gonna have a governmental hack in the same way, I think, when you're still using snail mail. So maybe we need to lean into some of these older services in order to...
But do you need the same size workforce?
I don't know that someone's got a noodle that's
sorry.
smarter than my noodle.
So you think the answer is downsizing instead of instead of eliminating altogether? Make it more efficient.
I think what they're trying to say, Canada Post is saying, yes, fewer people are sending out a letter. Anyone also know the price of a stamp right now in Canada?
It's over $1. I know that.
Yeah, it's interesting though. Like that says how few letters were sent.
I was going to say 45 cents. Show my age.
Yeah, see?
Damn.
But they're recognizing that something needs to change, and they are recognizing that it probably has to do with packages. What they're saying, and which I think is admirable, is they don't want to so quote-unquote gigify these new jobs that they're creating, so that you're hiring employees who work spotty hours, maybe 6 hours one week, 40 the next week, and who don't have any benefits.
We don't want that as a society.
None of us want that.
I think it's really admirable what they're doing.
No,
But here's the thing. I think it's time to pivot. They are going up against some big competition. There are huge companies that are in this space. You know, you maybe have to get creative. You've got to keep servicing the rural communities that don't have this. So maybe instead of just, I don't know, having a community postal store, maybe you also team up with a big bank, and you have banking and postal office in a spot. You got to start thinking outside the box. Shopify is one of Canada's most amazing online digital shop stores.
But those are privatized.
No. But what I'm saying is you can get into a deal. What if Shopify, great Canadian company, gets into bed with Canada Post and they become the exclusive shipper
I don't
for
like
the
it.
biggest
I like
company
keeping it
in the world?
crown
You know what I mean?
corporation.
What if they hear this idea and they steal it?
Yeah, well, maybe. I just think they have to be nimble.
I totally agree, but there are so many countries whose postal systems are subsidized, like Japan, like Norway, like France, and
They
I
don't
think
have the geography we have.
that's true, but I think the geography means that we need it even more, because for right now, for $1.44, it costs the same amount of money to mail a letter from one coast to the other, and I think that's incredible. That's a subsidy,
Unfortunately,
that I'm happy to
I get
pay.
it, but that's not where But the trend line is not showing more letters. The trend line is less and less and less letters.
Yeah.
So the end is near if
And
they
they
don't
see
fix
that.
it.
They see that, and they're like, let's move into the packages, but we don't want to rip off employees. We want to treat employees fairly
I think
instead of this
both.
gig economy.
No, I'm not saying rip off. Of course, we want to protect employee and workers' rights, but you have to do that against stiff competition. Amazon is wiping out everybody. How does anybody compete? You got to get nimble and smart. With people much smarter than us,
But then
obviously.
again, I'm just going to say this
Yeah.
one more time. Is that the systems then need to change as well, because the government isn't ready to make all these shifts. They still require people with a pen and a piece of paper to fill out certain sensitive forms and
That's a
send
great
them
point.
in the mail.
Yeah.
So until that system is up to snuff, you need Canada Post and you need these workers' rights protected. It's like they all go hand in hand. You can't just flip a switch and
So
then
are
fix
you
that.
okay that the government, yeah, Canada Post has said they need $1 billion a year to stay afloat. They are insolvent. They are not a viable business.
Yes.
Are you okay giving them $1 billion a year to
What I'm
stay
saying is
afloat?
that right now the government needs to be working on fixing these systems so that they can go in hand and make adjustments together going forward. They can't go with them together.
And you asked a really interesting question, and we do have an audience in front of us. How do you guys feel about spending $1 billion a year to keep Canada Post running? How do you feel? Just check the temperature in the room. You're
Wow!
It's half and half.
It's half and half.
Half and half.
Yeah, it's
Very
half and
interesting.
Disagreed with me about lyrics, but all on workers' rights here.
Well, Jess, that's what you do. Bring people together.
Let's meet up after the show
yes.
for a drink.
Let's be clear. Let's be clear. We support workers and we support workers' rights. We want people to keep jobs. We don't want Canada Post to shut down. We got to figure it out.
We gotta figure it out.
Got to figure it out.
Subscribe to the Social Podcast so you don't miss a fiery debate. Until next time, socialites.